Where contour and continuous line is more of an intuitive process. Your organizational line, gesture, and organizational line are more analytical. It's more a sort of conceptual, or you're working from your mind rather than the sensory experience of intuitive line drawings. So both of them are important for the artist, whether they're intuitive or analytical. Some people will do really, really well with contour and not so good with the analytical, where the analytical drawings are often done very well by people who like math. But either way, it's about building strength. And so if you're weak in one area, it's important to work on both sides of your brain. So this particular exercise is a thing called gesture. And again, in comparison, where contour is about drawing along the edge of the form, gesture is about capturing the essence and the directional forces, direction of movement in a form, the angles of a form, the inside, the interior of a form. So what happened in the last slide that I just showed you, there was a strong yellow diagonal line, and that was captured within 1 second. So if you're looking at an object and I say, draw that one object, find the directional forces, and in 1 second establish. And so that's what happened with that yellow line. That was an example. Now here's an example working with the human form. And there are 3 or 4 drawings here, quick sketches. These are usually done in 30 seconds. In gesture, the faster you work, actually, the better. But in these quick gestures, the thing that they're trying to locate, the artist is trying to locate the movement and capture the movement. Oftentimes, beginning students, their work is very stiff, or I'll see it in people who are not trained, don't have a trained eye. It's not a bad thing, it's just different. This is to capture a moving form in space. You want to find first capture the movement, and then everything else falls into place. First thing this artist did on this third drawing is they came in with one long, continuous, curved line. So it was running through the center of the figure, as you can see. And then after you've established that long line from shoulder to ankle, it's kind of an S curve. Then you're able to build the form around it and capture the motion and movement of the figure. Gesture captures the essence of a form. This is another example of working with several objects and moving very quickly, a thing called cross contour, moving across the form as well as along the edge of the form. But you're not really trying to draw slowly, carefully, edge, detail work. You're really looking for something much more general, and you're drawing very quickly so you don't have time to put in those details. Gesture is often used when you're working on an idea sketch and you have an idea for a very big project and you're exploring different possibilities in thumbnail sketches. The quick gesture is an excellent way to do that. Even though it may not look like anything on paper, you have walked through a process in your mind of an idea. You're able to see what it would look like in that quick sketch. And remember, again, we're not drawing pretty pictures. We're not trying to make something that's perfect. We're working through a series of exercises that are going to build skill, and the process, what we're gaining is not a product that you sell on the market, but the product is happening inside your brain, and that evolution is going to happen, and you're going to benefit from these exercises and experiences as we go through the semester. You'll see a huge difference, and I have slides of student work to prove it. So, and at some point I may give you an entire slideshow of lots and lots and lots of student works and how this course will evolve. Another exercise that I have and I'm requiring you to do has to do with establishing the central axis. There's also an excellent video in your file that has to do with an organizational line. Now, what I'll ask you to do is to create a still life. You can practice it first, like take one bottle. Let's do that. Take one bottle. You're going to take a line right down through the center of that bottle, from the very top to the very bottom, and that's called a central axis. And basically what's on the left-hand side is on the right-hand side. Once you've established that, you start looking for, and you can see in the pencil drawing underneath the still life, a series of horizontal lines where you're finding the widest line, which is there at the shoulder, where it's attached to the body part of the bottle. By the way, when you're looking at bottles, it's a way of kind of abstracting the form. You see a rectangular shape for the body. Then there's kind of a shoulder area, that's the curve, and that curves into a neck area. So each one of these are uniquely different. And the more variety that you can put together of different bottles from your house, Coke bottle, a beer bottle, a cologne bottle, what else? A coffee cup. And you want to create all these different sizes and heights, some short, some tall, a bowl, keep very simple, basic shapes. And again, this is a process. This is an exercise. And starting off with very simple forms is very important to understand. Oftentimes we want to do the more detailed work because that's really cool. But we've got to get this, again, foundation, basic structure down. Once you do this, you're able to organize your shape. And the more complex you go with your forms, the more you understand how to do that once you've walked through these exercises. So let's take a review here. Let's review for a minute what we're talking about with organizational lines. And I've made a list of things here that are important in understanding what we're doing. First, this is an analytical process. You're working with that side of your brain, the math side. Method of measurement is something I'm going to take you through some examples, and we'll do some exercises around method of measurement, but you're basically able to draw and erase to find the perfect shape. And the simplicity of all these different bottles that you look at, if you look through them, you see all the central axis, the lines that run from the top to the bottom. You see these lines that go from the left to the right side, and you're breaking the bottle down into pieces, which, in simple shapes, to evaluate what you're looking at. So if you see something on the left and it doesn't quite even out to something on the right, you can straighten that out. But it's a method of learning to see and look and measure your proportions, your placement, and your scale of an object. Locate the central axis, locate basic shapes first, and again, it's a process of abstraction. Once we learn how to do this, It doesn't matter what you draw. You can go out and draw a landscape, a human form, but you're going to use a method of measurement, a way to measure the proportion, placement, and scale of whether it's a mountain, whether it's a human form, whether it's a car. You're going to work with this organizational line to make it happen. I've given you an example. I've set up an example of a student slide here. We'll go to the next slide. And the student slide is, this is your portfolio at the end of the semester. Now, we are going to do a portfolio, but it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to have a portfolio that you're going to submit a portfolio to me through Blackboard, which is really cool. And it's just a different way of presentation. This is putting everything out on the table. And you can see the students practicing in the lower right-hand corner that practice of taking the first step, which is to take a line down through the center. What you think is the longest line, how long is it? How tall is that bottle? How tall is that cup? And it's a visual process. You do not get your ruler out and measure it, but you want to say, well, that's 8 inches tall or it's 6 inches tall. And then your job as an artist is to get that form, bring it down so that you can place it inside that sheet of paper. And then the one that's next to it is going to be in proportion to, so the bottle in the center that you see in this lower right-hand quadrant drawing is smaller, and it's next to the one on the right, and there's so much negative space between those two. But you want to start off with one bottle, do a drawing, 2 bottles, and I'll explain this more in your assignments. But you'll also be setting up 2, 3, 4 bottles so that you start looking at the relationships. You know, where is the height and the space between, and where is your baseline on the paper? It's the baseline is the bottom of each bottle. Notice that they're all at different locations. One's lower, one's in the middle, one's higher. This is because they're moving back in space. It's the way to create that illusion. So let's take another look. Let's review this for a second. And what you have here is setting up a still life. You want to set the still life. It's really cool to take a picture of it. So when you are ready to send it to me, the drawing, you have the picture of it. It helps me understand what you're looking at, what you're doing. So please take a picture of it. And then do the drawing. Now, people want to do the drawing from the picture, and it's okay, but it's a lot harder if you're drawing the objects in direct observation. Drawing the picture helps to look at your objects and analyze it, and it's a great tool to study, but then put it away and then do your drawing from the real form, because you learn more. You're going to learn a lot more. Copy work, like copying the photograph, is cool. A lot of artists do it today, and it saves a lot of steps. But I think for the process of learning and understanding is to actually draw the objects in space. All kinds of things are getting triggered and happening in your brain. It's a big step to interpret a 3-dimensional form on a flat sheet of paper. So it's a beautiful drawing, student drawing, line down through the center. Find your widest, and then follow the contour. You can correct, and the shapes can look pretty geometric at first, but then when you start to follow the curves of the form, it begins to soften the edges, and you have a more realistic appearance to your bottles. Now this is a big one. This appears to be, well, I can draw a trash can. That's no big deal. I can do that. And a lot of times I'll have a student will just say, hey, let's draw this. And they'll come across stiff and flat, and it'll be a rectangle. This is not an exact rectangle. If you notice the base of the trash can, if you want this to be realistic, you're going to draw the base of the trash can it's going to be a little more narrow, and then the top of the trash can, there's a wider width. The thing that sets this apart and makes it an interesting and very realistic drawing is in the details. So this is one of the first attempts to combine your organizational line with your contour line drawings, and they begin to integrate, and we begin to use them. They're like tools in your toolbox. They're separate, yet they can come together to create a more detailed, original, and realistic form. But notice the lines, they're light lines, they're disappearing, but if you notice that you have your line central in this, through central axis, going from the top to the bottom, right straight down through the middle. But there's one important line here that trash can throw people, and you're looking at it and you think, well, it's not sitting on there straight. It's at a slight diagonal, and sometimes that can get really hard to draw. But if you draw your diagonal line first, you can see it at the back top side of the back of the trash can lid. You see that diagonal line. That establishes your gesture. That's the movement in space. That's the thing you're wanting, the essence. Then the contour, basically, of the trash can lid comes together real easily. If you don't have that structure down first, it'll probably look pretty flat and pretty stiff.